You might be asking yourself, why do I have 4 computer cases in my living room? I'm asking the same damn question. And it's not that this one shouldn't be here, it definitely should be. And it's not that this one shouldn't be here, this one's getting shipped out. This one really shouldn't exist, but that's a different story. It's this one that is the real pain in the ass, and I'm going to tell you why. So yeah, I got a bunch of computers in my living room for no good darn reason, but that's a discussion for another day. Today I want to talk to you about why I got rid of my Intel setup altogether in a very savage way, and that I'm doing all AMD now. And some of you might not think that that's a big deal, but considering that that system was an i9 14900K, it's not like it was some 10-year-old Intel setup. It was kind of the best of the best, especially when it comes to gaming on the I side of things. Of course, if you're on the AMD side of things, there are greener pastures, which I have lovingly jumped into. The loving arms of AMD. Thank you for the hug. Let me start by saying that this system was actually originally made for me by Robitech. What a great blessing that was a couple years ago. He put this together, and there's actually a stream that you can watch where he put the whole thing together. It was an i7 with a 3070 Ti. But over time, as I was actually a console gamer at the time, and then he gave me this gaming PC, I decided that I'm just going to go full bore into gaming on my PC instead of an Xbox Series X. This thing was doing better frame rates than my Xbox Series X could do, so why not? Then I really got into it. I'm like, well, I want 4K at 120 frames because I play on my television in the living room. So I want lots of frames and lots of resolution. And since I was already on an Intel platform, I figured let me just go ahead and max out the board. So I got an i9 14900K. And by the way, this was before all the things came out on the internet about how they were dying. Let me tell you, when you buy something and find out like 2 to 3 months later that there's a massive problem with them, it was not a happy time. But I couldn't possibly have known that before then. But before all that, everything was great. And, it was a powerful system. I loved it. When I put the 14900K in there, I had all the cores doing all the things, getting all the frames. And I was super happy. And I thought, yeah, this is just like when I very first started on computers. And I realized that Intel was what you had if you really wanted a good gaming PC, and AMD is if you didn't have any money. I mean, there was a time where that was the truth. And quite frankly, it's only kind of recently with the X3D processors where Intel got left in the dust. AMD smoked them like badly. But again, this was just a couple of years ago when I got all this set up, and I was still very happy with my system. And then things started going wrong. And this is where everything started to fall apart. Now, if you're familiar with the 13 and 14th gen problems where they were overheating, there were BIOS updates by all the manufacturers, and I went and got those BIOS updates as they came out. So my chip was never exposed for very long periods of time with those over voltages. And to be clear, this machine was never even turned on every single day. It was my gaming PC in my living room. I didn't use it for work. So I only used it when I was gaming, maybe, 2 times, 3 times a week for maybe 2 or 3 hours a session. So it wasn't used that much. And as time has gone on, I've started to use my gaming PCs more and more, but even then, they're not turned on every single day. So again, this thing hadn't been under very much stress. But just to be safe, I did get my chip replaced not too long ago. The 14900K was about 2 months old before all the things you're about to hear about happened. And that was always on a BIOS that had the latest and greatest for this, the Z690 Wi-Fi. Again, what you can see installed in that video from earlier. But the aggravations never quite stopped because there was all types of weird instabilities I was having in that system, and I was really worried that it was either my 5080, which you might have seen the video on. Make sure you check that video out if you have not seen it, or the 14900K. When I had my RTX 4090, which is in my gaming PC now, in this machine, it was fine. It was rock solid. Everything was good. 1,000-watt power supply. Everything was all good. When I brought it in here to be an office machine and I wiped it and started all over, put all my work stuff on it, and then put the RTX 5080 in, things started going crazy. So I blamed the 5080, and maybe the 5080 was part of the problem. But again, you should definitely go watch that video to know that the worst thing wasn't that it was malfunctioning, but everything else that happened. So with this, I decided maybe, just maybe, the 1,000-watt power supply, even though it's more than enough power, is a problem because I was seeing weird blue screens and errors. It just seemed odd. It wasn't happening with my 4090 as I then swapped it back in, and everything seemed fine. But it did later start happening when neither the 4080 or the 4090 or the 5080 were in. I had a 4070 Super in there just to test some things, and then I started getting weird glitches and crashes. All right, let's just try the power supply because this chip is only about 2 months old. It's been on the BIOS. It has no problems. I even tried undervolting it to make sure it still wasn't ignoring the BIOS settings, and all these things didn't seem to help. So I went and bought a new power supply. So after I put the new power supply in, it booted up, but it got really hot and actually shut down. And for whatever reason, every single time my PC would shut down because it overheated. And I'm thinking, why is that? And for no good reason, the fan in my AIO broke or it stopped spinning. This one, not the one you can easily replace, but this one. I actually don't like AIOs for a couple of reasons, including this. When something goes wrong, sometimes it's a very expensive fix, and air cooling is fine. I might have to make a video about this. So I ordered a new heatsink and fan to put in here. I figured, I can't believe I just bought a freaking power supply for this thing to make it more stable. My AIO stops working for God knows whatever reason, because I didn't even touch it at the time. So I'll just put a heatsink and fan on it. Well, if you've ever put a heatsink and fan on an Intel platform, it's just painful. Like, why is it as easy as AMD? Like, why do I have to hold the back plate on and put something else on? I hate that. The thing is in a case. I hate this. But it gets better because for whatever reason, the heatsink and fan that I chose, which, I actually like the heatsink and fan, it's being used in something else right now, had me take off the retention clips. Why is this part of the installation process? So as you can see, you basically have to hold the chip in while you're putting the heatsink on. And the problem is my motherboard's in the case and I'm not taking the case out to put a heatsink on. I shouldn't have to do that. I've never had to do that. And even after all of that was done, this is what happened. And this is the last straw. At this point, I can't trust that there's anything I can do to save this thing. And here is the bane of my existence, the i9 14900K. You raggedy motherfucker. I just became so upset that this happened. Yeah, I know you can't actually recycle motherboards. Don't worry, it's going to get recycled. It's right here, but it's definitely getting sent somewhere into the bowels of hell, I hope. And this is really Intel's fault because the thing is, the 13th and 14th gen overheating issues were them trying to push their processors to the point to make them look better than they actually were. If they weren't trying to push so much power through them to try to beat AMD, at least they would be solid. And quite frankly, I prefer a very solid system that I don't have to worry about over one that's highly performant. Now, of course, my gaming system, I want it to be the best performance possible, but having something that doesn't crash every other day is kind of nice. And with the heatsink issue, Windows crashing left, right, and center, I don't know if it's 14900K. It might be the 14900K. Reading that people are still having crashing errors even after their BIOS is updated, I've had enough. So I changed. We're back to red, baby. So I decided to go with a Ryzen 9 9900X. Now you might think, well, why didn't you go with like a 9950 X or X3D, which I would have done, but in the time that this thing went down and would not boot back up, which is what you just saw, I needed to have my PC up and running for work. So it was the only thing that I could get same day delivery from Amazon. So I got that and Gigabyte motherboard. So I went AMD and I've had zero problems. Like everything works. Surprise, surprise. I even got my 5080 back and it works now in this system. So did the 5080 have the problems in the Intel board? Was it because of the 5080? I don't know. I know for people who watch that video are going to immediately say, oh, it's because you had the 14900K, and that would make sense. However, again, I just want to remind you, I put a 4090 into that system to test it after the 5080 wasn't working, and it did work. But everything else that happened with this board was so painful that I want nothing to do with them anytime soon. And to know that their newest processors aren't any faster than like the i9s is just ridiculous. It makes me wonder if Intel even cares about gamers anymore because AMD very much does. It's very obvious they do. So I'm kind of excited to see what comes next. So I put a 9800X 3D in my gaming PC. I have a 9900X here for my main machine here. And everything's great. I'm super happy. I feel like everything's solid. And I even have a third system I'm building with a Ryzen 5. I mean, you should definitely subscribe to watch that video. I got to tell you one thing. I just am happy that I can actually have a system that works. I was so used to a system that was so unstable that I wasn't sure if I could even stream videos without the videos crashing. There's an actual issue that I saw come up multiple times in Chrome and I honestly thought this was a video driver issue that when I Googled the answer, it was people with i9 14900Ks that had the issue. Video streaming on YouTube through Chrome, and it was a processor problem. Brother, Intel, what the hell are you doing? What what's going on? I can't do this anymore. And my new boo is AMD. If you have gone from the big I to the big A, let me know about it in the comments below. And I tell you, I got all types of videos coming. I want to talk about this build. And I don't know. Do you want to hear why I don't like AIOs? I would be happy to tell you the reasons why. And I'll see you in the next one.